Welcome back to Loose Frame Podcast. I'm your host, Tyler Martinovich, and we are in studio today celebrating our 10-year anniversary, or start of our 10-year anniversary. And joining me, as always, are my compatriots.
I'm Hilary Weber. And I'm Jesse Brock.
Hello, ladies.
Hello.
Happy 10-year anniversary.
Happy anniversary.
Yeah.
Woohoo. We made it.
We made it to 10. What are you supposed to give? You've been married for 10 years. What is it, gold or silver?
Silver is 25.
Okay.
I was just thinking that.
Yeah.
I should have looked that up.
What is our anniversary? It's probably something lame like wood.
Paper.
Paper. Here's a permit.
Yeah.
It's probably what it actually is. But we're going to spend the next couple of months. Not all of our podcast guests are going to be about this, but next couple of months just sort of looking back and reflecting on where Tampa Bay has grown and where it's gone and where it's going. And to help us do that, we have a very special guest today. Who's coming?
Dale Gordon. Dale Gordon is the former film commissioner for Hillsborough County. And this is such a good episode to kick off our 10-year celebration because she's pretty much how the entire film organization was founded.
Yeah. For those that don't know, prior to 10 years ago, there was no film commission in Tampa Bay, which is a strange thing to say because arguably we couldn't find us on a map in some cases, but we were a major city and there should have been a lot of film production going on here. And there wasn't. And there was no one to facilitate anything or grow business. So
I think the last big project before she came on board was The Punisher.
It had to have been. Yeah, and that was
I think that was
2001 or 2002.
Yeah, early 2000s. And then it just kind of dissolved.
Yeah, and before that, you have to go back to Great Expectations, which shot in the area.
What?
Yeah.
What year is that?
It was the one with Ethan Hawke and Bill Murray, I think, is in it.
Okay.
They shot that in Sarasota, Tampa, and Pinellas County.
We need to add that to our poster wall. I did not know that.
Great Expectations. You got to go way back for that. Though.
yeah. It's pulling out of the vault.
But yeah, so it's going to be a fun episode here. We're gonna get right into the interview. And then on the flip side of that, we'll come back and talk a little bit about some of our favorite memories and what it's been like the last couple of years. All right, so stick around. We'll be right back with our guest, Dale Gordon. Welcome back to the Loose Framing Podcast. Joining me now is my guest, former film commissioner, Dale Gordon. Good morning. How are you?
Good morning. I'm good.
I'm very glad you're here. It is our 10-year anniversary, if you can believe it. And even though we've done, 2.5 years worth of podcasts, we've really never talked about Film Tampa Bay before. So it's kind of fun to have you on the podcast today to sort of pull the curtain back and look back on 10 years, but also where Film Tampa Bay came from.
Yeah.
So before we launch into it, I always like to set the table here. So let's talk a little bit about your past before you became film commissioner. How did you even end up in Tampa Bay in the first place?
So it's ironic. I kind of started in Tampa and then I left and then I came back. So I went to school at USF, Go Bulls. And really kind of didn't, I majored in humanities. Who does anything with that besides work in a museum?
I don't even know what that means.
Yeah, exactly. Let's see, I know about medieval and Renaissance art, and that's good for me. But anyway, I grew up in Orlando. I was always fascinated with the film industry, and especially in the 90s when I was in high school. That's when Orlando was dubbed kind of Hollywood East. Disney and Universal had opened up their sound stages, and so I went to work for Universal when I was 17, directing Star Trek. Not Star Trek, but you could the guests could make their own video of a Star Trek episode. And so basically they'd come in, I'd dress them up, give one of them Vulcan ears, go through a script. There was some, moving around because the ship did you even know this?
No,
this is the first time.
I know many stories, but that is not one I know of.
Yeah. So anyway, and then they would get their little VHS of their own Star Trek, episode. a lot of times there'd just be one sad person and there was 2 speaking lines. So somewhere in the world is 17-year-old Dale with Vulcan ears on in lots of people's Star Trek episodes.
Joining in because this is one sad nerd.
Yes, exactly. So
I'm sure I made someone on the podcast mad now.
So anyway, that was kind of my fascination, and really always loved the film industry. But I was never drawn to the creative side. I just was more fascinated. Like, I remember the first time I saw Braveheart, and it literally occurred to me, I said, oh my God, look how beautiful the scenery is. That's somebody's job, to go and find that location. Yeah. And so I just kind of explored it a little bit while I was in college, and I took film classes as electives. And one of my instructors, this was down at FAU, I was down there for a year, was on the board for the Palm Beach County Film Commission. And I was just he mentioned it in class one day about film commission. And I said, wow, that sounds really interesting. I kind of want to look into that. And so next thing you know, I did an internship with Palm Beach County. They then hired me on afterwards. And after I graduated, I moved back to Orlando, which is where I'm from, and was lucky enough to get on with their film commission for almost 10 years. Next thing you know, we're just making a family move back to Tampa. We were helping my brother with his business, and honestly, we were this close to moving to Seattle. Had already gone out there, had found jobs, all of this stuff, and at the last minute, we put the brakes on and said, "Whoa, what are we doing? We don't want to go that far away from our base and our family." And so,
suppose you go from sunshine to gloom.
I couldn't get more different, and so basically, I was like, well, now I got to find a job. I wonder what the film commission is up to.
Yeah.
And I had known Lindsay, who was, the last person who carried that post, but I knew that the Tampa office had been closed for quite a while. Well, as luck would have it, they were hiring for the film commissioner position. And I hadn't, I had about a 4-year break from Orlando until this point. But I basically was like, all right, let me call a couple people, get caught up on incentives, throw together a resume, and send it to the headhunter. And 2 calls later, I got the job offer.
Yeah. And, film commissions are ubiquitous across the country. I mean, there's no major city that doesn't have one. And yet Tampa hadn't had one, I think, at that point for 5 or 6 years.
Yeah.
It had been a long time.
Yeah.
Wasn't that strange? I mean, coming from Orlando,
Yeah.
I mean, why didn't Tampa have a film commission?
Yeah, it was really weird. And also, I remember the struggles that the previous film commission had, because they really did not have any authority. They did not have any backing by the leadership. I remember being in Orlando, and I would, again, I would look over at Tampa and I'd be like, I don't get it. I don't understand why. Because to me, it had more to offer than Orlando. Even with Disney and Universal. I mean, Disney and Universal at the end of the day, they are theme parks.
Yeah.
That's tourism, straight tourism. If there's anything film related, it's not much. And so Tampa, though, in the Tampa Bay area, it just seemed it was so much more rich, and it seemed like a more grown-up city to me than Orlando.
Yeah.
But I empathize with Lindsay, because I remember the struggles that she would have. I mean, they couldn't even get permits through.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it wasn't even a real film office. It was a part-time position that someone worked a couple hours a week in addition to their normal job. And it wasn't even a visitor bureau at the time. It was Tampa Bay and Company, if you remember that.
That's right.
So it was even before the visitor bureau was created. That's going way back. But yeah, you're right. There was nothing. And then when they closed up shop.
Yeah. Well, and it was interesting, and we can talk about the ways that film commissions have changed over the years, but when I started, so I started in July, I met you that very first week, and basically said, yep, nope, you're coming with me.
Yep.
And so you came on in October, I think it was. But you remember, I mean, we had nothing. There was no brand.
Yeah.
There was no website. There was no location library.
No, in fact, I tell the story every once in a while, like, they gave us some dusty old boxes, remember? That was left over they found in Lindsay's office. Yeah. And it was locations on microfiche.
Yeah.
And I just lost half the audience. People don't remember what the hell microfiche was. But that's how archaic this was. It's
Yeah.
like, here you go. Good luck.
Yeah.
And I remember our original website was Tampa Hillsborough Film Digital Media Commission.com.
Yeah, and we were
it was
like, it's not going to work.
No one's typing this out. No
No.
one's Googling this.
No, and there's no social media. And so, that first year,
We didn't even have a permit, remember? We had to design a permit document.
The city of Tampa they had at least an ordinance.
Yeah.
But Hillsborough County didn't even have an ordinance. And so it made, again, coming from such a heavy permitting background, because that's basically what I did in Orlando, it appalled me. And I'm like, okay, so basically every single permit that has ever been given out up until this date has not even been, it's been a piece of paper, and so it was that first year for us was so much about infrastructure building, because we had to set up shop.
Yeah. We even have a website.
No.
This was 2013, and you're starting a business, and there's no pre-existing website. I mean,
Well, then we couldn't even get business cards because we didn't have a brand.
Yeah.
I remember our first business cards, I think, were EDC, Economic Development Commission business cards. And it's like, well, you're sending me to film festivals to represent the film commission, and I'm like, got an economic, like it was difficult that first year. But at the same time, the great part about that first year was that we had zero pushback. And I think
it was a blank slate, and no one would be respectful to the EDC at the time. They didn't really know what to do with us.
No, well, they were new.
Yeah, they were all. You're absolutely right.
Yeah, they were like only a year old.
In fact, the day we're recording this, they had their 10-year anniversary yesterday.
See, yeah. So in back to what film commissions do and how they're structured, it is very common for film commissions typically lie in one of three places. They're either in an economic development commission, they're either in a tourism bureau, or they're in a mayor's office or a governmental office. But this EDC was they were such a baby themselves that they were kind of almost like, we don't have time right now, for you. You do what you're doing. We're doing what we're doing. We share space. And it was really great freedom to have that. And of course, it wasn't like, we have a board and we answer to them. But I think the community and the leadership were so starved because they hadn't had anything in so long that everything we brought them was like, check, check.
Well,
check.
There was really no expectation for us. They didn't realize what we were even supposed to do or be.
Well, and also, and I'm not tooting my own horn, but Orlando was a superior market at that time.
Yeah.
Funny how the tables have turned. But, I brought the experience of a professional market. We had never had that here, ever, because very simply, it was just never prioritized.
Yeah. So let's rewind to 2013 now, just as a state. So we were the third top filming destination in the United States. But in 2013, even though the program wouldn't sunset till 2015, the incentive pot at the state level had already run out. So here we are starting a film commission from the ground up, right when the state's about to go into a filming crisis. We have no brand, we have no identity. The community doesn't even know we exist. So talk a little bit about how we came up with the branding and how you wanted to do it different than how other film commissions were structured at the time.
Sure. Well, first off, we needed to find a great creative agency. And so I cannot speak high enough about Tricky Genis. I think that they are geniuses, and every single thing from when I was here that they gave me was just brilliant and wonderful. I mean, I remember one of the highlights, I think, was the invitations for the Infiltrator feature film. Like, it just, everything was amazing. But so you and I met with them, and we sat in a room, and they gave us a lot of examples of other film commissions, and everything looked, again, to me, old. And one of the biggest things that was important to me, and I've said this many, many times, but yes, we are a film commission, but they haven't manufactured film in the United States for 10 years at that point. And so we're a film, entertainment, digital media. We cover so many sectors of it. And it was really important to me and us that we captured digital, because this is what I remember I would say is digital isn't the future. It's the now.
Yeah.
That's what we live in. And so, yes, we are a film commission and we do support the act of filming, but we have to represent digital. And so the brand that they came up with, with the play button and the film strips, I just thought was brilliant. Ironically, 6 months later, other people would steal it.
Yeah.
And, lots of people. But, that's great,
Yeah, it started showing up everywhere. I mean, we didn't come up with the play button, but
of course not.
It felt very new at the time. And, everyone knows YouTube, and it wasn't like YouTube was a new thing in 2013, but it wasn't the behemoth that it is now. Yeah. And it sort of was aping off of that play button you'd see when you go on YouTube. And
well, and I didn't want, and I'm sure in Florida, a lot of times what I had seen in the past, especially with Palm Beach and Orlando, palm trees, sunshine, beaches, water, and I was like, I don't want any of that. I want to focus on the industry. I want it to be forward thinking and something that we could keep for a long time as well. The thing about the brand is that, ultimately you'd like it to just be the symbol. And so that's when we started with all of our collateral. So we started doing the t-shirts with just the play button, branding that I'd say first year was setting up shop. Second year was branding or marketing, essentially. We got really tight in our, social media. We started getting out into the world, going to the film festivals, sponsoring filmmaker lounges, that was getting the message out that we were open for business.
Yeah. Obviously the brand was important, but it was just communicating to productions that for 5 years had not.
Because they wrote us off.
They hadn't pulled a permit. So just getting them to realize, hey, no, there is someone to pick up your phone or pick up the phone calls, and there is a process now. That was a struggle. I remember our first year, we only did 126 permits, something like that. And now 2 years ago, we did over 600. So, it's exponentially grown. Yeah. That first year was a struggle. But
also building the relationships with the jurisdictions to get that done too, which you did so eloquently.
And that took a lot of time.
For trust,
Yeah. I remember having to go to Wine Wednesdays with some of the Tampa police officers. I went to departmental heads, kids, bar mitzvah, like little things like that eventually paid off. And those people are still working in a lot of those departments and positions 10 years on. So,
and those people are friends.
Yeah. We have so many good connections that we're able to get things done quicker than I think a lot of people are able to in other municipalities.
Well, and again, that's exactly how I accomplished that in, Orlando, because it's, a lot of times, especially the governmental folks, they're not appreciated. Yeah. And at the end of the day, we want to make sure that they trust us to protect not only their jobs, but, the community and what they represent. And so it's important to build those alliances and build those relationships. And we are almost like I don't want to say watchdog, because we're not there to police the film, productions, but at the same time, we want the next film production to film there. Yeah. And so
I remember going into the first annual meeting with the EDC, and our boss at the time, we're just sitting there in the crowd, and the boss at our time was giving his first year grand vision of where the EDC is going to go. And without consulting us, without talking to us at all, he just rolls up a slide and says, our new film commission is going to bring in a $20 million movie within the first year.
Yeah.
Didn't consult us, but just put that out in the paper.
He said 3 years.
Or 3 years, whatever it was. But we didn't have a website yet. And you want us to bring in a $20 million movie? Like, what?
But guess what? We did.
We did.
We got 2,
so
actually, because we also had Peregrine.
Yeah, but Peregrine's Home for Peculiar Children. Let's talk about that first movie that met the goal of a $20 million film ended up being The Infiltrator, which is an insane story in the development process. So let's go through that real quick.
Wow, yeah.
Right place, right time.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Here we go.
Yeah, you can pull it over.
Oh, yeah. So we'll get to that after the story.
For those watching and not listening, we're now prop comics on this this podcast.
So Infiltrator, it is a really interesting story. The first week that I started as film commissioner, I took every single meeting that I was asked for. I actually ended up losing my voice by the end of the week because I didn't say no to anyone. And not that you want to try to, help people, but there was definitely a lot of people don't understand what we do. A lot of people think we're going to help them
finance their movie, write their scripts,
get an agent. They just don't quite understand. And so there was a lot of explaining and, that. One of those calls was a gentleman named Bob Mazer. And he called me up and he was like, hi, yeah, so I wrote a book about my life and they're going to make a movie about it and I need to meet with you. And I'm like, oh gosh, okay.
And for people who haven't watched the movie, it's about not the importing of drugs, but the drug monies that were used by Pablo Escobar. And it's sort of a sordid past, but all that happened here, true story in Tampa. And Bob Mazer was the
undercover DEA agent.
Yeah. I don't know if Bob Mazer's his real name.
Robert Mazer? Yeah, who knows?
Who knows? But weird. He's a very nice person, but very clandestine. Always,
but he also, because of his colored past, he was consultant on like Michael Bay films, and he was in there.
He's a small, diminutive, very quiet.
You would never know. Never know.
But yeah, hey, they're making a movie about me. I don't know who you are, guy.
Yeah.
Come to my book signing or book review or whatever.
Reading
it was a book read. Yeah.
At University of Tampa, which also we don't usually do as film commission, but I was in yes mode, and so I remember because he told me one of his producers was going to be there. They weren't, but I sat and I listened, and I was terrified. There's no reason this man should be walking around without a bodyguard. And actually, it was funny because when we did the world premiere at Tampa Theater, he was in the room, but he would not be recognized.
Yeah.
And so anyway, I listened to his story. It's fascinating, but you know what, there's a lot of people with fascinating stories. It was whether or not he had the backing, essentially, because a lot of people think that as a film commission, it's all about the director. It's really not. It's really about the producers. They are the ones who are going to decide where a film is going to go, unless it's a small budget, or an indie film or something like that, but or a producer director situation.
No, we're getting incentives here in a second. Talking about the Infiltrator, but movies go where the best incentives are.
Yeah.
Bottom line.
Yeah, and director has nothing to do with that.
Yeah.
So anyway, no producer was there, but he did put me in touch with them the week after that. So literally, second week on the job, I'm talking to producers. This producer in particular was from England, and then she also had an office in LA. So that was encouraging, did research, but I think they came for their first fam tour probably like a year later.
Yeah, about
something like that.
And then it got a little more serious too, because then you had Brad Furman come on board as the writer and director, right?
His mother wrote the script, and he had done Runner with Ben Affleck and Lincoln Lawyer. So it was like, okay, this has got some movement, and we just kind of held our hand through the entire process. I'm a little bit embarrassed, but I mean, we were so involved with this project that they actually offered me an assistant producer credit on the film, which I absolutely refused and thought was inappropriate. But that's how entrenched we were.
Yeah, no, I don't want to diminish anyone's role on the crew, but that would not have happened. No movie would not have happened had we not done most of the heavy lifting for it.
Absolutely. I mean,
here locally, at least.
I even went to Cannes and sat in on our distribution conversations. That's how closely we were involved with that film. Yeah. And again, I don't mean to say that we wouldn't do that for anybody, but this was a $20 million film. Yeah. This was kind of what we needed to show the world that we could do that we had the workforce to do that.
And rewinding, I think it was Dolphin Tale 2 that received the very last dollars with the state incentive.
Yeah, I think you're right.
I think I'm almost positive it was Dolphin Tale 2. And maybe there was some smaller ones after that, but there was no money left. There was no reason in the world for Infiltrator, even though it took place in Tampa. I mean, they ended up building palm trees in London to make it look like Florida. You can make anywhere look like anywhere.
That part wasn't good.
But there was no reason for them to come to Tampa Bay. None.
And so what we did, and this was, only because of the support that we got from Hillsborough County. Hillsborough County gave us a local incentive pot, and it was our job, your job, to write an incentive program, essentially. And we wanted to make sure that, because this was our first turn, this was our first go. This was the first time a local jurisdiction had dabbled, in the state of Florida at least, had dabbled with incentivizing projects financially. Yep. And so it was almost like a experiment, but that's why we were so involved with this project, was because it was on us. It was literally on you and me for this to succeed, so that we would be able to do this again in the future. Yep. And so that's why we were so heavily entrenched with this film and everyday, communications. And I was dealing with above the line, and you were dealing with, the production manager and the location managers. And it was almost like, you go that way, I'll go this way. And, it was very difficult. Yeah. And it was a very difficult shoot too.
For many reasons, it was
very difficult for you.
But even the incentive wasn't enough, right? I mean, we threw some money at them, and it was a substantial amount of money.
Yes, it was.
But that still wasn't enough to get them here. We had to come up with a couple $100,000 in kind, everything from free production offices, free holding for their trucks,
free interns from the University of Tampa, their film program.
We had to figure out how to fly the actors out.
The hotel took 40% off the tab. And this to me was what showed the community, the business community really stepped up. Hard Rock threw the wrap party, in the middle of filming, because that was the only time we could do it. But, this community, I remember standing at the premiere and telling the story and I wanted to share with the audience exactly what happened, how this happened. And, what I said was basically, there wasn't a door that I knocked on that didn't open. Yep. And it made me so proud as a community that everybody wanted this to happen. And so, and everybody, the airport, for example, they might have done some illegal filming over there.
I was going to tell that story.
Yeah. We didn't find out about it until after the fact, but you can tell it.
No, I was going to tell it in the wrap up.
Okay. But anyway, I mean, they do actually allow filming. So, if they could have asked, but, that's how filming is sometimes. But yeah, so it was just, it was a hard project, but it was how we grew. Not only as a film commission, but as a film community. Yeah. It also, I think, helped the film community believe in us, that we were going to try to get these kinds of projects. And again, we're fighting a losing battle as far as high impact projects because of lack of incentives. But and believe me, I'm a commercial girl, so I would rather see commercials all day long.
But if we hadn't done that for Infiltrator, we wouldn't have the opportunity 4 or 5 months later when Tim Burton and I think it was Fox came over and said, hey, we really want to do Miss Peregrine's Home for Peculiar Children in Tampa Bay.
Well, he had a great experience because he did Edward Scissorhands.
So he remembered it fondly. Yes. But even Tim Burton doesn't trump the producers, right? And the producers like, we'll come, but you've got to figure out how to incentivize this.
I remember
we have an incentive program.
I remember being up where I live now in the mountains of North Carolina, having a conversation on Boxing Day with the producer for Peregrine, getting it locked. He basically was like, I need this, this, and this. And the answer is yes. And I remember having to call people on the day after Christmas and, get it done because they were up against a deadline and had to, know. But we were able to do that. We locally incentivized them as well. They didn't need as much hand holding because they only did one location. Yeah. One community neighborhood.
Sun City Center, which I think that might be the first and only thing to ever shoot there.
Ever will,
yeah. It is in the southeasternmost part of the county. I mean, right up to the county line. And it's like a defunct old
retirement community?
Well, it was a gated community at one point. but the
I
HOA,
know people live there.
well, they do. I mean,
Yeah.
it wasn't. It's not. I mean, but it was a gated golf course community.
Yeah.
And the HOA let the golf course go under. So now it's just like this overgrown golf course with all these
It worked
older
really
homes.
well for the film.
It looked great. But you could have gone to 100 different places and never found that location anywhere else.
Yeah. Yeah. So anyway, that was, I think those two projects back to back really helped us to get the confidence of our leaders. They were excited about it. It was like, okay, we did a good thing by investing in this. And that was you and me busting our butts for 3 years.
Yeah. And it's not enough to just point to economic impact. You got to make the community feel welcome and that it was a good investment of their time and money and energies. And we did that at Tampa Theater. So talk a little bit about, we're going back to Infiltrator now. So that was months after they finished wrapping. People had forgotten about it. And we brought everyone back, all the above the line, the entire cast. Bryan Cranston, who, by the way, if you remember, or when this movie was coming out, he had just been nominated the final season of Breaking Bad,
and he was nominated for an Oscar for
Trumbo.
Yeah, there you go.
Trumbo.
So it was funny because I remember when he came back, I picked him up from the airport, and I was like, "Oh, Mr. Fancy, with your Oscar nomination, had to have a private jet to come in." And he was like, "Yes, I'm very important." He was,
but we got the private jet donated.
We did, yeah.
Which is insane to me. But it was also
again,
Benjamin Bratt, John Leguizamo, who, by the way, Benjamin Bratt, people know him from TV, but I don't think people realize how tall that man
or
is.
Or beautiful.
You said that part. I said tall.
He is very tall.
He is a giant.
Yeah. Yeah. No, everybody all of the cast were, a lot of cast aren't always great. I've done this for over 20 years. I've worked with some not great cast. That entire cast was amazing.
Yeah. I remember John Leguizamo always eating with the crew, which is honestly pretty rare. Most retreat to their
And he also went out on his own
trailers.
social media and just shot this town like crazy. Cranston too. Cranston would go running down Bayshore every morning. Olympia Dukakis. I remember one night, Olympia, John, Benj, all of them, they went to La Teresita at like 3:00 in the morning because we were shooting a lot of nights. And so they really took advantage and felt welcomed enough in the community. And it was great because, a lot of times, especially when you could say that we were considered, they looked at us like an investor.
Yeah.
I even went to Miami with them on their behalf. They asked me to go with them to speak to another investor, like as one of their current investors. And so it was, again, but anyway, when you're considered an investor, we could have demanded a lot of things. Yeah. We didn't have to, we did. The one thing I kept firm on was I wanted the world premiere.
Yeah. And we got it. So
we did.
And that's what I was trying to say is that it's not enough to get the community to invest. You got to show them the value of it. And we did that at Tampa Theater. And it was just such an awesome evening.
It was so amazing.
So talk a little bit about just that evening and everything that went into it.
So we get the talent in and the director, Brad Furman, who is also amazing. And we did a full red carpet and all the news stations were there and it felt very glamorous. And they were all gracious. They did interviews, they signed autographs, and then we did a very special meet and greet for all of our partners that participated. And God bless them, but Bryan Cranston, Benjamin Bratt, and Brad Furman shook hands and took pictures with about 500 people.
Which, by the way, it was supposed to be a very small crowd.
It was supposed to be about 150 people.
And I don't know how that happened, but apparently everyone that came to the premiere just queued up in line, and honest to God, they stayed there for over an hour and shook every single person's hand.
That was the only time I saw Bryan a little bit we walked into the green room afterwards as he started incessantly washing his hands, and I do not blame him. And he was like, "Well, that was unusual." I was like,
normally VIP is a little more secluded than 500 plus people.
But anyway, so then after that, we, doing the film, and it was it was so special for me to be able to recognize not only, again, the crew. And I was because even crew a lot of time don't get to go to a premiere.
Yeah.
And so to be able to invite all the crew and then all the business community, even down to the servers at the hotel they were staying at. Like that was one of the best days I had, was giving a server an invitation.
That's so true. I mean, they usually do a crew screening or something, but it's not the red carpet experience. They don't get to dress up in tuxedos and walk the red carpet. And we gave that to everyone who helped out on the film.
Everybody. I mean, how many seats are there in that theater?
1,500, something like that. And we sold it out.
Oh, 100%. But so it was, it was so great, and it was, it felt so good. It was that's the proudest moment of my career, was, standing up there thanking you for us not killing each other during that filming, but all the hard work that you did.
I think I quit twice during that production.
Yeah, and I told you no. And so you came back the next day, so I was like, okay. It was hard. But anyway, standing up there and thanking the port and thanking Hard Rock and thanking Epicurean and thanking just the city of the police officers and just everybody who was involved. And I have never been prouder professionally than that moment.
Yeah. So you stepped away from the Film Commission in 2017 to have a better climate and more seasons out of state in the Carolinas. A lot has changed. So like we were driving here for the podcast today, and just going through like the Vinnick experience, which is one of the big developments, and how Ebor's changed and all the buildings and cranes everywhere. Looking at Tampa now, how has it grown in your estimation?
Well, it is actually a little bit interesting because I do get to have an outsider point of view. Where I live, we do have a lot of Florida transplants, and specifically Tampa transplants. So it's not like it's that far away, but I do hear about it a lot, and I hear it just what it feels like. And I think it felt like this back then too, but it just feels like Tampa is growing up. It feels like it's becoming a major marketplace. Real estate wise, it's crazy. My brother's a broker and he lives here. So he tells me, the real estate prices, whereas the rest of the nation is leveling off, this market is not. It is still is very high. Yep. You can't get anything. And if you can, maybe you can't get approved for it, but with the rates, but it's changing. And I think, but at the same time, you still have your historical points like Ybor, hopefully Ybor will never, it's going to change, but not too much. You need to have that. I don't know. I think it was a little bit weird when we were driving in, because I'm like, the skyline is changing.
Yeah.
I just hope that, the planners are smart about it, because what you don't want to have is what originally happened here in Tampa, which is like pretty much in the 50s, it boomed, all the same architecture, and then nothing happened again until like the 80s.
Yeah.
And so it makes you very singular. And so I hope that, with all of this planning, that the design is unique and not too much of one thing, because I think variety is what people like.
I think we're preserving a lot of that. But you said this in a different comment offline before we started the podcast. But I think, I don't remember your exact words, but like people didn't know where Tampa was on the map, right? And I don't think that's true anymore. I think people do know where Tampa is.
Well, and I think a lot of that, originally, I think it was because of the success of the sports franchises. But honestly, and this is part of my perspective of outsider looking in, I see a lot of young people moving here. And I think a lot of that is because, you have a booming food scene, quality of life. It's, beautiful. I think it's kind of everything you hope for as a city planner. Seeing the younger people come in. Yeah. You've got is the medical school done?
Yeah,
now?
Built.
Yeah, okay.
A couple years ago.
Okay,
Yeah,
well,
it's up now. We'll drive by
I'm
later.
Saying that's bringing more younger people downtown, and so you remember 2013, downtown Tampa was a ghost town.
Yeah. In fact, in 2013, we were in the Bank of America building, and it was the newest building that had been
Since
built since the 80s.
80s. Yeah.
And I mean, nothing had changed.
No.
And you go back further than that, and you're looking at the 40s and 50s.
So it is really, I mean, it's kind of mind blowing. And obviously we know we have a business angel in town who's helped a lot of this, but
there's 19 cranes between downtown and University of Tampa right now, building new buildings.
It's amazing. No, I think it's great. And I think I think that's why I alluded, a little earlier, there's tables have turned. Some markets are not making it, and you guys are just thriving, and it's really great to see. And I'm so excited.
Yeah. We got to wrap up here in a second, but this has been great just looking back and reminiscing, but looking at the brand, right? The brand was so important to identifying of who we are and how do we approach our stakeholders. As an outsider now, looking back, like where do you think the brand is in our do you think our branding, Film Tampa Bay, everything we put into it is still relevant today?
The original brand?
Yeah.
I do. I think, the thing about a good brand is it's longevity, but also being playful. The shirt that I wore today, this is vintage and vintage Film Tampa Bay, but we did this for breast cancer awareness. That's why I wore it. It's almost, end of October, but being cheeky and having fun with it. I love the neons that you've been bringing into it and playing with the fonts. And, personally, if it were me in 20 years, I would do a retro back to like something like that, but a nod or a something, So let's get this guy over here. Sorry. But yeah, you have to stay fresh.
Yeah. Well, I think that was always. I mean, look, every film commission has social media sites, and not to bag at any other film commissions, but it's extremely dry. It's not very playful.
I'm pretty sure Wilmington, North Carolina, has the same logo that they've had since 1994.
Yeah,
and
I think right from the beginning, like the minute we activated our social media channels, we were always a little edgier, a little cheekier.
Definitely.
No one else has Save the Cans on.
Wait, should I turn around so I can see it?
Well, only for our video viewers. But yeah, breast cancer awareness, Save the Cans.
Your film cans.
Yeah, strategically placed. But
it's fun.
Yeah, our swag, our identity, our branding has always been a little more edgy, a little more playful. I think crews like that.
Well, we're an artistic industry, I always thought it was so funny when, we're artistic and we're creative, but at the same time, we're like very hardcore business as well. And I do believe in the economic impact of this industry. And we've had to have a lot of intelligent conversations, pleading with legislators and lobbying. And it's so frustrating sometimes when they don't get it. But, at the end of the day, we're the people with the clients. I remember in Orlando, I had the Jackass film, and we were in a very professional economic development commission in Orlando offices, and the Jackass guys come in with fantail mohawks and holes and just all this, and they're like, they're for Dale. But hey.
I think the word you used when we first started was creative casual. And I use that so I could show up in flip-flop shorts and a t-shirt most days, which I still do.
Yeah.
And no one's ever questioned because we're the creative class.
Yes.
But it's been great. We got to wrap it up, unfortunately. Okay. So let's give me a final. We've already mentioned the Tampa Theater, so I know that's one of your favorite memories, but give me just a final memory or something that you look back on and you're very proud of.
Attending con with you.
Okay. That was a fun event.
That was eye-opening for me to see our industry, because I had done, TIFF and Toronto and but real international experience, and seeing how the distribution side of things worked was, I don't think a lot of film commissions get to do that.
No, they don't. Well, one, it's very cost prohibitive, but two, it's not. Everyone associates it with the red carpet. That's certainly there, but people.
I gave my red carpet ticket away.
You did, but people overlook just the economic development
Yeah.
and the business side of it that's present at Cannes. And you're absolutely right. It is eye opening.
It is, and it almost should be called something else,
Yeah.
because yes, it is a film festival, but it's also a film market, and it's also distribution, it's also financing. It's like it's a phenomenon, and so that was eye-opening to after 15 years of doing this, to get to go and see something like that, and to be able to bring film students with us so that they could experience it. And so all the way around, I just thought that was a pretty amazing experience.
Well, and looking back too, I mean, I love being able to bring students, but there's a lot of film commissions that go to Cannes, but it's like state level film commissions. It's very rare to see a small little entity go to something as big as Cannes.
I lucked out the first year I went and found the most amazing villa, which was so cost friendly. I just accidentally found it, and it literally is over La Pizza, which is the most popular. I didn't know this. This was a total fluke.
The most popular
restaurant in Cannes, where everybody goes. Our apartment was on top of it.
And then the next year we booked the same apartment and we lost $40,000 in embezzlement.
Yeah. But they still gave it to us.
They did. I'll tell that story after
tell
we wrap
that another
too.
time.
But it has been a pleasure. Thank you so much for coming back, helping us celebrate 10 years.
Absolutely.
This organization, we wouldn't be celebrating 10 years had you not put in the time, effort, creativity, branding to make Film Tampa Bay what it is.
Thank you.
So thank you for being here.
Thank you.
And for our audience, we'll be right back. And welcome back. Hilary, that was a great interview. And there were some stories there that maybe you guys knew about, maybe you didn't.
Well, I knew of the Infiltrator, but I didn't know those gritty details. I mean, I was captivated.
Yeah, it was. We didn't go through all of them. There's a lot of stuff that happened that we probably shouldn't share, but it was kind of a crazy time. I meant it. I think I quit twice, maybe 3 times, where it was a very angry phone call or a angry text message like, I am never coming back.
Oh my God.
And then of course
on the shoot or for the promotion of the shoot or all of the above?
No, the promotion of the shoot was fun.
Okay.
I'm talking about the actual production of.
Gotcha. Yeah, because you were handling permits at that time. So you were doing it pretty much heavy lifting it.
Yeah, I think I mentioned, Hilary, on the interview that I think our first year we did like 120 permits,
which is nothing compared to what we're doing now.
Nothing at all. And those were like, we're trying to go out there and like, hey, please put in a permit, justify our job. Like you have to do these things. Because no one was putting in permits. They didn't have to. There was 5 years. No, there's Wild West.
You were handwriting them too, weren't you?
Oh, yes, we were.
We did that for much longer than we like to admit.
Yeah.
But we are now fully digitalized.
We are. When you were down Palm Beach, did you ever have to deal with paper applications?
Not paper applications, but there wasn't an easy automated portal like we have now with Apply For, which really simplifies things.
Yeah. There was like a download button on the website. You could download the thing. But I don't know why, like, people couldn't figure out how to email it back to us. Like faxing, we didn't have a fax machine. People couldn't figure out how to scan. And they're like, do I actually have to go to like a Kinko's and scan this? We had people that were just taking janky photos and like texting them to us. And half the time you couldn't read it. They were out of focus or they were so dark you couldn't see what was on the screen. And my favorite is when people would try to track us down and we didn't have a publicly listed address, which is kind of like a P.O. box or, these things. And people would just show up out of the blue like, who the heck is this person? Why are you here? Why are you angry at me? It's like, do you know how long it took me to get here and I had to find parking? And
oh, wow.
Could have just emailed it to us, buddy.
Yeah, I'm so thankful for our processes now.
Yeah, things have really, really changed.
But sort of reminiscing on the conversation that you just had with Dale, it was all a part of kind of awareness and reintroducing yourself to the community. And there was a lot of challenges presented in that, I'm sure.
Yeah, we had no brand. Mm-hmm. We had nothing.
You're starting from a blank slate.
Less than a blank slate. At least a blank slate is something you can write on. We didn't even have computers, right? We didn't. Their computers existed. I'm not saying we were from the Stone Age, but like I'm
like, this was 2013. Computers were around.
We didn't have desks. We didn't have computers. We didn't have email addresses. Like nothing. So we show up and like, well, hey. And we were housed within economic development. And economic development was also brand new, so they're struggling just to figure out who they are. And then on top of that, they're saddled with a film commission that they don't know what to do with. And it's like, well, there's some empty desks at the back of the office. No, that's not true. I'm lying. They didn't even know how to give us desks, so they stuck us at the Port Authority for the first year. I totally forgot about that.
Yeah.
Where we are literally in the back of the Port Authority. Why would we be in the Port? We were in the back of the Port Authority in a 1970 style cubicle with a rotary phone and a laptop that was like a cinder block.
Oh, wow.
So you and Dale talked about some of the challenges of starting from a blank slate. Was there anything appealing about that? How did that free things up in some ways?
No, I mean, it was rough going because it's not just like we didn't come up with the brand overnight. So we were lucky enough to find Tricky Genis, which she mentioned. I'm sure we'll have
Shout out to Tricky Genis.
Tom and Teresa on at some point.
Yes.
But that takes months of research and development, and we really didn't come into our own branding until much, much later. So I'd say that was mid second year. I mean, it took a long time to get there.
So you were founded in 2013. I was brought on as the very first marketing intern.
Yeah.
I had networked at an event, Business Women of Tampa Bay, and the director of that, another Jessica, I told her what I wanted to do. I was like, I want to do marketing for movies and I want to do it in Tampa. And she was like, I know exactly who you need to talk to. And she introduced me to you. And up until that point, you were getting students from UT and there were a lot of production interns. But I came to you with this idea and we created it from there and kind of sort of formed the very first marketing strategy or social media strategy for the Film Commission.
Yeah.
I remember you had the idea for spotlights back then.
Yeah,
I was reaching out to people and blogging about it, and we didn't have like the facilities or things at our disposal to do recording or anything at that time. But the idea for marketing was Dale's idea, but it was just as much yours.
Yeah, no, I mean, I always like to think I have very good instincts for a lot of things. I'm not great at a lot of things, but I know when I have a good idea and I can push the button on that. And I think I have good taste. And I knew from the beginning that we were not going to succeed if we didn't get out there in a new way. It took us years. In fact, we're only really catching up now to what that idea could be.
Yes.
I knew we needed videos. I knew we needed more social content. I always wanted to focus on the community through spotlights and really it's not about us. It's about the crew. It's about the production companies.
Yes.
It's about the individuals.
Yeah. Dale kind of touched on that a little bit, where she's like, the governmental entities are a little bit forgotten about. And that reminded me that this past year we did a spotlight on the city of Tampa and Donna McAllister and TBCN. And we're trying to shine a light on our community partners as much as we are on our crew.
But I mean, going back, we had all these great ideas, both Dale and I, and we didn't have the resources. Our budget is, I mean, you don't need to know. I'm not going to say how much our budget is, but it is 4 times as much as it was when we started out. We had no resources. We were building everything from scratch. So it's great if I have an idea. I'd really like to do spotlights. I'm just trying to build a website. I don't have time for these things.
Yeah.
I mean, it took us 2 years to get our logo and our brand. I remember the day when we finally figured out our logo, which I still think it's relevant today with the play button. But we had a giant CNC'd version of that logo was installed in the office, and that was the first day we felt we have an actual office with a name, and it's Film Tampa Bay, not Tampa Hillsborough Film and Digital Media Commission.
Talk about a mouthful.
Yeah, and look, that everything I just said is true. We are the Tampa Hillsborough Film and Digital Media Commission.
Yes.
But man, no one wants to type that into a search engine. No one wants to type that in at .com. It's not going to happen. So it took us a while to get to Film Tampa Bay. Not that that's terribly clever, because it's also Port Tampa Bay, Tampa Bay Chamber, Visit Tampa Bay. But it gave us an identity that said we're claiming this space. So that was always the hurdle, is how do I communicate to people what we are, why we're needed, and then get them to trust us to do what we say we're going to do. Mm-hmm. And we had no connections.
Yeah, there's a couple different perspectives in that interview. Pulling out the marketing aspect was really cool, but I also love that she's kind of a lifelong film commission person. She started in Palm Beach, which Hilary also is from Palm Beach. Apparently, Palm Beach to Tampa is way more popular than I originally knew.
It's a pipeline.
Yeah, it's the pipeline. But then Orlando too, and she kind of said, Orlando was a much bigger, prominent market at the time.
Oh, it was a 800-pound gorilla compared to us. I mean, we were infinitesimally smaller at the time, and we've certainly grown now. I think we're out of Orlando's shadow, if I can say that. But it took a long time, a lot of effort to do that, and a lot of that, like I personally would have never have fought for the Infiltrator, and that would have been my mistake. If Dale hadn't been in that position at the time she was, with those contacts and those sequence of events that led to that, we never would have gotten that movie. Because in my mind, it was just too much to fight for the economic return. Because they spent some money here, a couple million. It was about $1 million, $1 million, $2, something like that, maybe a little more. They did hire some local crew, but they were asking for a lot. And at the end of the day, I think it was only 10 actual days of production and about a month and a half of pre-pro. I mean, a lot went into this. We were flipping cars and blowing stuff up, and a lot went into it. But at the end of the day, it's like, man, that's a lot of work for what we're getting. And what I didn't see at the time, and I think what Dale did see at the time, was that it was more than the movie. This was our announcement that, hey, we can land bigger projects. And I didn't appreciate that, because I was doing a lot of work.
It was something where there was nothing.
And, you can't see the forest through the trees sometimes when you're at that level. But that would never have happened had Dale not been at the right place at the right time and made those decisions.
Yeah.
Was there anything that happened in the really early days of the film commission where you're like, oh my gosh, it would be so cool if one day we could do this, but you knew you didn't have the time, energy, money that now we do?
That's a good question.
Digital permits.
Check.
We not only was I having to acquire these permits, right? They were paper. So then I had to go and get them signed by the people that needed to sign them. So I'm like walking over to the county center like, hey, please sign my permits. And then walking back and then figuring out a way to get it to these people. And then I had to archive them. I'm sure there is
we still have our
I know. There's giant bins somewhere filled of 3-ring binders filled with paper permits. That annoyed the heck out of me. And I'm so glad we finally were able to transition away from that and bring it into the 21st century. So that's certainly one thing. The other thing that I always wanted to do, and this goes to sort of the marketing area too, is that I knew we needed video content. Like we can't say we're a digital media commission and put so much focus on the digital if we're not actually in the digital space.
Right.
And we just didn't have the time, resources, or talent in place at the time to do those things. So that's another area. I never would have guessed, looking back 10 years ago, that we would have an office of 4 people with defined roles, doing their roles very, very well at a very high level, and that we can focus on what we do best. Because back then it was just like, oh, what do you need me to do today? Get coffee for Brian Grant? Sure. And I got to go flip a car in 20 minutes. And like, I got 4 more commercials I got to deal with too at the same time. Like it was
chaos.
It was chaos. It was madness. And customer service is hurt because of that, right? Because I can't focus on everything. And you want to give that attention and focus, whether it's in marketing or permitting, whatever it might be. But you can't do that unless you can stay in your lane and focus on those things. So that's something 10 years ago, I never thought we would have accomplished or grown into. I didn't think the incentive would have been around this long, and it has. And we the first couple of years, like we had some big wins like Infiltrator and Miss Peregrine's, but then it kind of lulled down, and we didn't have a lot. We were incentivizing things, but not a lot of projects. So there was always money left over, which is a strange thing to say. Like, there's free money, come get it. But now, for the last 5 years, we have not given away every single dollar.
It gets spoken for pretty quick. There's always a line
within the first 2 weeks of the program opening every season. So
but that speaks for the area too.
It does.
Tampa is hot.
Going back to the permits, 120 some odd permits. Now we're doing hundreds of permits you're processing. And I remember there'd be some weeks where there would be no permits at all.
Oh my gosh.
And, I check in on our digital portal, and any given time you've got 6, 13, 15 permits open, 20,
25.
Yeah. It's amazing how those have added up and how we're continuing to grow.
And one thing that I really love is in so many different places, the primary function of a film commission ends up being permitting. We do so much more than that. We have the incentive program. We have all these events that we do with FTB Presents and other community things. So we're really, really engaged with the community in a way that some places just don't have the opportunity to be.
No, that's so true. And it goes back to like Film Tampa Bay is a film and digital media commission, and I wanted us to be more than a normal film commission. And we started in that process and going that direction. But again, it takes years to actually plant those seeds and see where they go. And it requires community support. It requires governmental support. Our budget is so much more than it was originally. That's because we've been able to show value in what we do to our stakeholders, and they grow with us.
Yeah, the return is there.
But you're right, Hilary. We try to do a lot more than most film commissions do, and I think that is our future going forward. Is we're going to continue to innovate and push into spaces that normally film commissions would be scared to tread in, or they wouldn't see value in it. But we can figure out how to bring that value back.
Right. So cheers to the to 10 years.
Yeah, cheers to 10 years.
And the next 10 years.
Yep.
I guess I do have a cup. To
any other? Yeah, cheers. With our siren cups, if you're watching on TV. Any other takeaways before we wrap things up, ladies?
No, I really enjoyed that conversation.
Yeah, it was really nice,
Yeah.
as the employee of the Film Commission, to learn about some of that history and really see how far we've come.
Yeah. It was a great conversation. And again, this is our 10-year anniversary. If you can have a birthday month, we can have a 10-year anniversary year. So we are going to be looking back going forward with a couple more guests in upcoming episodes. And follow us on social media. We're going to be doing something monthly around a milestone or something that we've accomplished looking back. And speaking of social media, Miss Jesse Brock, where can they learn more about us?
I thought you'd never ask. We are Loose Framing Podcast. Stream us anywhere you listen to podcasts or watch us on YouTube. And don't forget to follow us at Film Tampa Bay.
And thank you guys for watching. We'll be back next time.